This is Join Us in France, episode 45. Hello, I'm Annie.
And I'm Elise.
And we welcome you to the Join Us in France travel podcast. Elise is a professional tour guide, art historian, and a very good storyteller.
Ho, ho, ho.
On today's show, we give you an overview of France's best Christmas markets.
Yay.
There are so many to talk about that we're not going to talk about all of them.
No.
But we're going to concentrate on a few, which are...
Strasbourg.
Yes.
Paris.
Yes.
Marseille and Aix-en-Provence.
Excellent.
And a town called Montbéliard, which
Yes.
is in the mountains on the east side.
Yeah.
And a little bit Toulouse, because this is where we are.
Yes, of course.
And we'll end with Sarlat.
Salat. Very good, very good. So, lots of exciting stuff to come. But first, we'll do a little music. But before the little music, I have to remind you, if you like what we do, and if you would like to support the show and help it grow up and pay its own bills, you can make your next purchases on Amazon through our website, which helps us get a little bit of a commission. So to do that, you go to joinusinfrance.com/Amazon, click on your country flag, and it'll take you to your local Amazon store, and then we get a small commission on whatever you purchase.
A nice little Christmas present.
Yes, well, we're not going to get rich on this. We just want the show to pay its own bills.
Keep the show going.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so now the music, and we'll come back and talk about Christmas markets. Okay, we're back with the Christmas markets.
Yay, Christmas markets.
We
now,
love that.
We know that, of course, in France, there are markets of every kind, right? There's
Sure.
food markets. There's the wonderful yearly truffle market. There's a market for foie gras.
Of course.
There's a fashion market. I mean,
Yeah.
this is market country, right?
Yes,
Everybody
yes.
celebrates some kind of market. But, of course, the big thing, and getting bigger and bigger all the time because it is something that brings in enormous numbers of tourists everywhere, is...
And locals, too.
And locals,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely. And suckers like you and I, is the big deal is the Christmas markets.
Yeah.
And mostly they begin... it depends on where they are. Just quickly, they are run basically by municipalities. So it's up to each city or town to decide how big a market they want to have and when it will begin.
Yeah.
Mostly they begin the last weekend of November. Mm-hmm. Sometimes not until the first weekend in December.
Yep.
And they end usually around the 21st of December. But a couple of them, and one of them being the one here where we are, it ends the day after Christmas, which means you can't even go back to it, which is a shame, for the week between Christmas and New Year's. So I don't know how that's decided. I don't know whether it's the merchants who decide.
Well, I think people are tired of Christmas by the time it's the day after Christmas.
That's true, except that, when you think about it, since the markets are not just for things like nice hot wine and foodie things, but also for buying real gifts.
True.
Sometimes, just like with the stores, you want to have a few days to go and exchange or something like that. You know?
That's true, yeah.
But I guess the merchants are just ready to pack up. It turns out that I was looking at the dates, and some of the places, in fact, do stay open till the 2nd or 3rd of January. Mm-hmm. So it really is a municipal decision. And I don't know how that works. But anyway.
Yeah, because it's the city that puts up the little houses.
That puts up the houses, which of course are called chalets.
Yeah. And then rents them out. And
rents them
pretty
out.
expensive for those, the people who want to rent those out.
So the history of the markets, though, is actually really interesting. And it's not a long history, but it's really, really fascinating. The most famous Christmas market in France is the one in Strasbourg. Now, we've already done our podcast about Strasbourg.
Yep.
And I was just back there a couple of weeks ago for a few days. And since it was the middle of November, everywhere, absolutely everywhere, they were starting to set up the decorations for the Christmas markets. And it's really a big deal. I mean, it's not just like, oh, yeah, there's this one central square where they put things up. It's the entire old city that gets into the mood. But that's true, actually, everywhere in the region or the department. Well, it's actually departments, several departments, but the region of Alsace.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because the Christmas market really comes from there.
Right.
And it comes from there because Strasbourg and Alsace, as they say, used to be for a very long time a Germanic region, not necessarily a part of Germany, but it's Germanic. It's Germanic in tradition, and of course, the Alsatian language is Germanic.
Yes, it is,
and they still speak it a lot. Even though the young people, we were running around asking people in the cafes, "Do you speak Alsatian?" And most of them rolled their eyes and was like, "This is the 20,000th person that's asked me this question. Please leave me alone." "No, I speak only French." But they were all saying, "Yeah, our grandparents do," or something like that. But the words, of course, are all in Alsatian.
Yeah. So they probably know a lot of words.
And
they
know
vocabulary.
Words.
They might not know how to.
So
can I interrupt you for a sec?
Yeah.
Because I have to say, for people who are listening, especially from North America, that was one of the things that was striking to me when I moved back to France.
Yeah.
Is that in southern France anyway, Christmas is not as big a deal as it is in North America.
That's right.
It's changing a little bit. The cities are doing more decorations. But even the stores have put out Christmas stuff earlier than they used to. But even 10 years ago when I moved back here, there was hardly anything Christmassy until like 2 weeks before Christmas.
Right.
It's changing a little bit.
It's changing a little bit, but it's interesting. It's changing. You're absolutely right. And of course, the fact is, and probably that's why I loved it so much, is that we are used to the atmosphere that's like in Alsace. That's what it's like.
Yes.
When you come from the States, to me, my husband's French, and it was like he's going, "Oh my God, look at all this Christmas stuff," and I'm like, "Oh my God, all these things, Santa Claus and lights, and we're only in the middle of November," and I was going, "Oh, whoopee!" I mean, it really. Yeah. I think when you come from the States, and honestly, I have no idea what it's like in the southern part of the United States either.
Yeah.
But especially if you come from the north, if you come from the northeast, or cold parts of.
In the western U.S. where I used to live, it was a big deal.
It's a big deal, and the decoration's a big deal, and everything else. And I realized that it was because our traditions about Christmas in the States really are from the Germanic part. They're from the northern parts of Europe.
Yeah.
And it is through the Germanic parts and Holland and the northern Scandinavian countries that, all the things we associate with Christmas, gingerbread, hot mulled wine, the decorations, all of that is northern.
Yeah.
It's not, and now, of course, yes, you're right.
And the singing, too.
And the singing.
The singing, because, my husband's family they're all musicians, and so singing is really important. And so even in France, the first thing he did is he joined a few choirs.
Right.
But his choirs don't do Christmas concerts.
They don't.
They just don't.
Oh.
They might add a couple of Christmas songs to whatever they're doing, but they just don't. It's very strange.
That's interesting,
So 2 years ago, we went to a big Christmas concert that was advertised in Toulouse. The orchestra, the local symphony and choir was doing something. And when we showed up, it was so weird. The stage was not decorated Christmas. Oh. All the singers were wearing black. Yes, they did some music that was kind of Christmassy, but it didn't have the oomph and the joy, and it was like very serious music. It's like they were performing a mass or something.
Well, I guess that's what it was for them, really.
Right, and I was very, very taken aback. Like, we really don't get the spirit of Christmas in the south of France.
Right.
Well,
it's different.
Maybe it's different in other places,
and
but
it's
in
different
Toulouse,
a little bit in Provence. Yeah.
I'm like, whoa, you people don't get it. Smile a little, it's Christmas. Some lights, some. Make it bright and happy.
I think that it's interesting because this is what I found out from the research. So first of all, the first mention of Christmas markets, believe it or not, is in the 1300s.
Oh, wow. That's a long time ago.
It's a long time ago.
Yeah.
But the market, it's like, I think one of the things is and I don't think we've ever really talked about this as a podcast, but in the Middle Ages, the French word is more accurate. The foire, F-O-I-R-E, a foire, which is a fair, which is like a big open market. It was a privilege given to a specific municipality by the local lords, whoever was running the area, whether it was a religious lord, which could have been, or if it was the local baron, count, whatever. But it meant that the town had an incredibly important economy if it had several of these fairs during a year. And in Germany, it was the custom, before it became the custom in France, to do this, and specifically where they produced lots of certain kinds of goods, like textile goods, leather goods, and then, of course, they would bring in other things. And so what happens is, apparently, it got mixed up with something else, which is something that we know about in the States, but we really don't think about in those terms, and that is St. Nicholas, St. Nicolas. And this is what I found out, which is really fascinating, too. I knew that St. Nicholas, who lived in the 300s, in the 300s, he was from Anatolia. He was from somewhere in Turkey. I don't know if you knew that. And,
I knew that.
And he lived a long time. He was not one of these saints that got killed very quickly and martyred, and whatever. He lived to be about 75, 76 years old.
Yeah, that's nice.
He was...
For the 600s, 300s?
Yeah, the 300s.
Yeah.
The 300s, right? He did a lot of traveling. He was very influential in the Christian church. At that point, there was no difference between Orthodox, Roman Catholic. I mean, there was just a Christian church, basically.
Yeah.
It was the very beginning of the church. And he very quickly after his death became a saint. But he became the patron saint of children, among other things. And what happened was, and I don't know exactly how that came about, all through the very early Middle Ages in the development of Christianity all through Western Europe, he really was adopted in lots of different regions. So in the different parts that eventually became Germany, Northern Italy, France, and all of those areas, as one of the most important saints, and really is responsible for being known as the person who gives gifts to children. Because that was somehow part of one of the miracles that he performed. And
it's a brilliant idea.
It's a brilliant idea, right? So what happened was that starting in the 13 and 1400s, these markets that developed around Christmas time were largely called the St. Nicholas markets.
I see.
And they were set up about a week ahead of Christmas Day so that families could buy little trinkets and mostly food gifts, but other little kinds of things like little miniature dolls and stuff like that to give to the children.
Yeah.
Because originally it was really just giving gifts to children.
Yeah.
And it started at Advent. And so it started, I guess that's 8 days before Christmas, I believe.
No, Advent is 21 days.
Okay, then I'm getting confused. That's now is what they do most of the times. It's 21 days ahead of time. Then at that time, it was just for a few days before Christmas.
Okay.
And in Germany, this became a very important event. Why, I don't know specifically, but
culturally it took off.
It took off, right? And so the oldest document that talks about a Christmas market is actually from Dresden.
Oh.
And it's a document from 1434.
Okay.
And it talks about the Stritzel market. This is why I'm trying to figure out what this word Stritzel means.
Yeah.
Okay. And it was only for a few days prior to Christmas.
Okay.
And the whole point of this market, which brought in, of course, vendors with spices, and, that this was a big deal to have these fairs, but it brought in all these people. So first it started out just being little things for children and things like spices and certain kinds of foods. And then it started including things like cloth from foreign exotic places and other kinds of gifts. But still, just for a few days right before Christmas.
Well, this word stretzel, when I looked it up, it's a bread.
It's a bread, right?
It's a beautiful bread. So maybe it's just the tradition of eating that bread.
It may be, because in fact, in Strasbourg, what I noticed, and I don't know if it's there just at a certain time of the year or all year round, first of all, I love the bakeries there, but that's just something else. But they had a kind of brioche in the form of a little man, like we have gingerbread men.
Yeah.
And it was just a brioche. It was just and I don't know what that was called. It's something with an M. But Pierre, my husband, whose ancestors on one side of the family actually were from Alsace, he said he remembered from his childhood getting things like that from his grandmother or great grandmother. So we
probably have listeners who are from Germany or even from that area. If you want to enlighten us,
that would be
write
interesting.
in the show notes, in the comments at the bottom of the show notes, because we'd love to know
more about
details
this.
about,
right?
Yeah.
It's really fascinating. So anyway, of course Strasbourg is this magnificent, huge, wonderful city that stayed for centuries as an independent entity, and it was very prosperous, and has this huge, as you and I both know, magnificent cathedral.
Yep.
And then this is the weird thing. This is why I found this so fascinating. In fact, the whole story of Christmas as we know it today is because in the 1500s, that is in the 16th century, Protestantism developed through Luther and Calvin, but in the Alsatian area, mostly, I guess, Lutheranism. And what happened was that the huge cathedral became a Protestant cathedral, which I didn't know. And the city council, the burgomeisters of Strasbourg, which was the most important city in the area, in order to make sure that everyone knew that the city and the region had gone Protestant, they decided to change the name of the market that was the market that had originally been devoted to saints. This is why I'm questioning what the name, this word Stritzel market is. And they decided to change the name from Stritzel market to a word that is Christ. Okay, I'm going to try and do this correctly because I don't speak German. Christkindl market, which means the Christ child market.
Yeah.
Okay, and they said that if they call it the Christ child market, it's about Christ and it's about the holiday of Christmas, and it's not about the saints because that's the big difference between the Protestants and the Catholics is about worshiping saints and images of saints. And so they themselves banished images of St. Nicholas.
Oh.
So it's weird.
Well, that's not so friendly, is it?
No, it's not, even though he was the patron saint of children.
Yeah.
But what is weird is that in order to do that, they expanded the market. They said from now on, it's going to be about buying gifts for children and for everybody else in the family, but we're going to give the market a different name. And they invited other kinds of merchants to come in, and it was literally from the 1500s on, and starting in, actually, it says it's the first market in Strasbourg that was like that was officially, and it's on the website, if you go on the website, in the year 1570, which means this year's market is 444 years old.
Wow.
And what they did was they expanded the market to not just include the esplanade, the huge space that's in front of the cathedral, but the other big plazas and squares that are in the center of Strasbourg.
There is no big plaza in front of the cathedral.
It's in a big esplanade. It's a big open space. It's what you would call an esplanade. It's in front and on to the one side.
Yeah, okay.
So they moved it from just there to include two other places that are very big. One is called the Place Kléber, and the other is the Place Broglio,
which are close by.
Which are very close by.
Yeah.
And
it must be a lot of vendors then.
Well, in Strasbourg, and only in Strasbourg, there are 350 chalets, which is the very biggest market anywhere in Europe, even including now in Germany. And Germany has Christmas markets everywhere in all of its major cities. But the biggest one of all is still in Strasbourg. And of course, what makes it amazing is that they apparently do this whole big deal where they have a famous performer come and do the opening ceremonies, famous singer. They have not just the chalets, but they have a part that's thematic. So they invite another country or they invite a particular theme. They have performers. They have all kinds of special events. They have everything you can imagine. Last year, the Strasbourg Christmas market had 2 million visitors.
Yeah.
It's huge.
I believe that.
It's
I
huge.
would love to go. I mean, I would really love to see.
I would love to go too. Now, you and I, we know someone. I don't think I need to mention her name, but we know someone who, in fact, used to live in Strasbourg, and I asked her the other day what it was like to be there, because she hasn't been back for Christmas market in a number of years, because now she lives here in Toulouse.
Yeah.
And I asked her what it was like if you lived in city center to be there during Christmas market. And she rolled her eyes and she said, "You get out." Basically, she said, it's like being in Paris in the summertime if you're a Parisian. You don't want to be there. She said the problem is now, and this is because the history of the market in Strasbourg is really interesting. It literally exists every year since 1570. It continued in spite of World War I and World War II.
Wow.
It's such a deep-rooted tradition that it's really, really the most important social event of the whole city for the whole year. But what happened was that, and this is really interesting from a commercial point of view, because I think we have to talk about how commercial a lot of these Christmas markets have gotten anyway. Apparently, in the 60s and 70s, the department stores started picking up the idea and started competing with the vendors on the outdoor Christmas markets and started underselling them.
Mm.
And so what happened was, for a period of time, I don't know exactly how long, a lot of the vendors stopped wanting to sell at the Christmas market because they were not making their money, because obviously this is a very important moment from a commercial point of view for them.
Yeah.
And this could be anything from handmade toys to foodstuffs to soaps to, scarves.
Yeah.
Now, of course, the problem is, and it is a problem, is that to find stuff that's genuinely handmade and that really comes from the area that you're in is not evident. I mean, it's just a lot of stuff is still...
By that you mean it's not easy.
It's not easy. It's like a lot of it winds up being in spite of what people would like.
That was good franglais, by the way.
Huh?
That was good franglais.
That was good franglais.
It's not evident.
It's not evident.
C'est pas évident.
Évident.
Yeah, that's French.
Very,
it's not English.
I know. All right. I have to go to Strasbourg and eat some gingerbread. I think.
Yeah, maybe we should talk about some of the, like, I go to Christmas markets to see if I can find some fun, interesting gifts for people that are hard to shop for.
Right. But
like,
what I just wanted to just finish my thought, which was that the one thing, and this is, of course, one of the criticisms now of all of the Christmas markets, and Strasbourg tries to avoid it, and I think a few of the other places that have a genuine heritage related to Christmas markets do. I think that here where we are, it doesn't exist, and I'm sorry to say that it isn't the case. I think that a lot of the markets are just commercial ventures, and they don't really have things that are locally made. And I think that one of the things about it is, for people who are from an area, like for us who live here, when I go to the Christmas market, I really like to see if I can find things that are genuinely from the region.
Yeah.
Or I just go to take a look and have some hot mulled wine and that's the end of that.
Yeah.
Because a lot of it, unfortunately, now is made in China. I mean, so, but yes.
Yeah, some of the vendors, because a few years back, I knew somebody who rented a chalet, and he was telling us that it's 5,000 euros.
For the period?
I think it might be for the week.
Oh, no, it couldn't be.
Anyway,
it probably is for the 3 weeks.
It might be, but it's expensive. And if you're selling $2 trinkets, you have to sell a lot of trinkets to make up, because you have to be there morning till night.
That's right.
And it's cold. I mean, you're just standing in place outside. Right. It's not pleasant work.
No.
So to make up for it, they try to. What they know is going to work is food,
right?
Beverages,
right?
And the fad toy. If they can figure out what toy all the kids are going to want and sell a bazillion of them, that's good. But they're taking a big risk,
Of course they are.
I mean, like a few years ago, there was a family that has some roots in South America, and so they were selling a bunch of
those hats and things like Peru.
Yeah. Peruvian hats and whatever. And I talked to them a little bit because, anyway, I chatted with them. And she was saying that they're not sure they're going to do that again because they're not selling as many hats as they had hoped,
Right.
And it's pretty expensive. So it's a difficult situation where you don't want to be too commercial, but if you're not commercial enough, you're going to be losing money on this. And so they have to make that calculation. In places like Strasbourg, though, probably there are so many. I mean, with 2 million visitors, even if you sell something a little bit more obscure, you would probably do okay.
Except, yeah, you're absolutely right. But the thing about Strasbourg's market, and that's why it attracts so many people, is that it has several specialties. And one of them is decorations for Christmas.
Yeah.
And so people come from all over because, and I went there once a long time ago when I was living up in the Northeast, when I was actually living in the Lorraine area, in the Vosges. And what I found astounding was that there are still lots of people who do make really beautiful cloth, wood, all kinds of incredible decorations for Christmas, Christmas trees, everything. It's very much the tradition. You have all the spice, you have the honey cakes, the spice cake, the gingerbread men.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of times now when you go to other markets, they're industrially made. But in fact, the tradition, and this is what Strasbourg is about, is everything you and I really associate with Christmas. So you have all the Christmas decorations, you have the candles, you have it smells wonderful. You have all the spices in the air and the mulled wine, which of course is now here in the South. Who knows about mulled wine? Well, now they have mulled wine at the Christmas market because people have found it's the fad or it's become fashionable.
It
sells.
Yeah.
But nobody ever drank sweet mulled wine in the southwest of France before. I mean, it just was not part of the tradition.
Yeah.
And the Strasbourg one is... they have dolls, they have toys, they have things made out of wax. They have all kinds of special things that are brought out really for Strasbourg.
And the type of Christmas tree I do is very Germanic looking. I just buy very different looking ornaments everywhere I go. I like to buy an ornament and put it up. But my French friends, what they like to do is they do a beautiful themed tree. So it's going to be all blue one year.
Really?
Or yellow one. Not yellow, but it's usually blue or silver or gold. And they don't mix and match ornaments on the tree. Yeah, it's all the people I know, nobody mixes and matches the ornaments. They don't.
That's weird.
Yeah, that's a very strange, it's a very strange... It looks prettier because your tree is all silver.
It's like thematic.
Yes, they pick a color and they're gonna do that color. And at my house is like hodgepodge of all colors.
Yeah, well, I like it when you pick up different things from different places.
Yeah, because then I remember. Yeah. And everywhere I go, I like to buy an ornament. That's just a habit I have. Anyway, sorry.
That's a good habit, though.
Yeah.
That's not a bad habit to have.
I love Christmas. I love Christmas music. I've been playing Christmas music for a week already.
Oh, I think I better get you some jingle bells to put on you.
I don't necessarily like jingle bells.
All right, we won't give you jingle bells. But this is interesting in terms of Strasbourg. Yeah. And this has to do, of course, with the modern mentality about markets. It went through this period of a slump. And then in just about the year 1990, the City Council of Strasbourg, which is a really relatively important city. It's culturally important. It's economically important. It's a very international, cosmopolitan city. So they had this brilliant idea, and the Chamber of Commerce of Strasbourg self-proclaimed Strasbourg the capital of Christmas. I love it. And they said, and they started putting out ads. They bought up ads in the national newspapers, and they started putting ads in everything to attract people and bring not only more tourists to Strasbourg for Christmas, but to bring back the good craftspeople and vendors. And so since 1990, this is what has happened to the point where it is now over 2 million people. And when I was there, I was there 3 weekends ago. I went in and out of a couple of little hotels, and they said to me, "You're very lucky you got a room because you came the week before the Christmas market opens." And I looked at them and they said, "You have to understand, people reserve a year ahead of time to have a hotel room for the Christmas market. It is the high season in Strasbourg.
Yeah.
It is the moment of the year. And of course, it is very beautiful. And of course, we have, I think, a bunch of photos to put on about it. So it's really pretty neat. They have music everywhere. They have the lights on the river. I mean, it's really a trip. And of course, when you come from a country where you're used to seeing a lot of exuberance around Christmas, it's kind of fun. It feels good.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing is that Strasbourg is, of course, the major city, but the region of Alsace has lots of gorgeous villages and small towns, and all of them are famous. And I just want to mention three. I'm not going to go into too much detail because there's no point. But the small town of Colmar, Colmar,
Yep.
which is the second largest city in the Alsatian area, is very beautiful also. It's a kind of miniature version of the center of Strasbourg with little canals and half-timbered houses and things like that, but
Yeah.
it's much, much, much smaller. It's also famous for its Christmas market and decorations of the town because they put everything on the canals. It's called the Little Venice of Alsace and all of that.
Nice.
And then a small town or very big village, whichever you prefer, that I went to and is unbelievably gorgeous, named Riquewihr, which is in the middle of the wine country.
Can you spell that?
Riquewihr.
Okay.
Riquewihr. It's gorgeous. It's got a huge, huge collection of homes from the 1300s, 1400s, and 1500s.
I think we mentioned it in the Strasbourg podcast.
I don't remember if we did.
Yeah, okay.
But it's also in the heart of wine country. So it's famous for having wine vendors and merchants there. And they are also very famous for the Christmas market and the decorations of the villages. So, in fact, what I guess I'm trying to say is that if you decide you want to take a trip to France at this time of the year, it's definitely worth taking 2 or 3 days to go to Alsace.
Yeah.
Because it's just gorgeous.
Yeah.
Everywhere you go, the decorations are wonderful. The Christmas markets are all great.
And also, you can do it as a day trip from Paris with a TGV,
You
with a fast train.
But
train.
if you're going to spend 2.5 hours on a train, it seems like at least give yourself one night.
Yeah, but if you can't find a hotel room like you told us.
Think ahead. What can I say? You have to think ahead in this world. I mean, that's just the only way you get around things,
And if you didn't think ahead,
And if you didn't
get
think
up
ahead.
early, get the first TGV out of Paris.
Exactly.
Go and come back that night.
And go and come back that night,
Make
yeah.
for a long, long day.
It makes for a very long day. You could actually make a short stop. You don't have to go as far as Strasbourg. It's not as good, but it's very nice. And that is to stop in Reims, which is only an hour on TGV away from Paris. And of course is in the heart of the Champagne country. And they also have a smaller version of the Christmas market and some nice decorations. But if you really want the real whole shebang, you have to either get as far as Strasbourg or Colmar. Colmar's probably a little harder to get to on a direct train line.
Yeah.
But it's wonderful.
Yeah.
And just be prepared for crowds.
Yeah.
That's the only thing.
So what ends up happening in these Christmas markets is you're outside, it's cold, and you're not moving very much because there are crowds. And
Right.
so I end up getting very cold, so I need like the
a lot of
hat
hot
and
mulled wine.
you need a couple of mulled wines, and you also need a hat and gloves.
Yeah. Oh,
and
yeah.
good
It's cold.
Good socks and shoes, and because you'll freeze.
It's winter country.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's not necessarily
if
a
you're
lot
from
of
Florida,
snow.
you're
Or California.
Yeah.
I last year was in Reims at the end of November when it was very cold with a group of women, and a number of them were from California, and they were very unhappy.
Yeah.
And it was really unusually cold and nasty that particular day. But this is winter country. It's inland. It's a real winter area. And so, yes, when you're walking around, the only thing you can say is, as a consolation, if you're in the midst of a crowd of 2 million, the other people will warm you up a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit, but not that much.
Not
I don't
that
get that
much.
friendly with the neighbors.
No. And of course, this is one of those stupid things that is a sort of self-evident thing to say. But if you go to a place like Strasbourg, which is the city center, has all these wonderful old little narrow streets, and even with these big open squares covered with the Christmas markets, you just have to be careful of your pockets and your bags.
Yeah, of course.
And it's just one of those things. So let's go from one end of the country to the other.
All right.
And let's go to Provence.
Ooh, nice.
Nice. So we're staying
warmer.
A little warmer. We're going to stay for the moment on the east side of the country and go straight down. You can actually do this literally by getting on a train again right from Paris. And believe it or not, it's not much more of a time. Doesn't take that much longer to get to Marseille from Paris than it does to get to Strasbourg from Paris. And what you have in Provence, which is, of course, a very, very old region, and we've talked a little bit about Aix and we've talked about Provence, the traditions are quite different. They're much closer, perhaps, to Southern Italian traditions. Mm-hmm. And one of the biggest things that happens in the Provence area around Christmas time is the making of nativity scenes,
right,
with the traditional little figurines called santons.
Yeah, les santons.
The santons. And the santon is something that comes really from the Middle Ages. Mm-hmm. Nowadays, when you buy them, you can get them, you can get some of them that are like, 1.5 2 inches high. They can be really tiny, or you can get them
bigger,
going up to almost a foot high.
Yeah.
But what's really interesting is that there are, and I really didn't think that there would be. There are still in the region around Marseille 62 companies or people who manufacture by hand.
Yeah.
From the beginning, from scratch, these wonderful little santons, which are made mostly of terracotta. They're made of. They used to be made of wood,
right?
And the terracotta is actually only since the 1800s. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure why they switched over from the carved things made out of wood. But what's really interesting, I knew that this existed in Provence and that it has existed for a very long time. But what I didn't know is what it comes from. So this is what's interesting. In the Middle Ages, people used to perform what are called actually as the literary term, and I'm not sure if there's another term for it, what were called the mystery scenes.
Yeah.
And the scenes were, of course...
Nativity scenes is what you call it in America.
Well, they were nativity scenes. No, they weren't just nativity scenes. They were scenes from the life of Jesus.
Oh, okay.
So they covered different events.
Okay.
And they were enacted by real people.
Yeah.
Usually in the front of the churches.
Yeah. Okay.
At certain times of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened was, again, this is why I found this so interesting, because of the arrival of Protestantism, and yet the southeast of France is still very, very Catholic for the most part. Mm-hmm. But with the arrival of the new kinds of thinking of Protestantism in the late 15th century and the beginning of the 16th century, the idea of enacting these scenes out in public was considered to be either in bad taste or in some towns actually was forbidden. Oh. And so what they started to do was make these nativity scenes to put inside, to actually put them inside the church, inside the houses.
Yeah, okay.
Instead of having them acted out by real people. So, of course, that meant they had to reduce the size of them to make them possible to be put inside. And because Provence is geographically very different from the north, you have pine trees, you have olive trees, you have all of this Mediterranean kind of terrain.
Yeah.
It became a tradition. I don't know if anybody was responsible for it or just happened like that, to include in these nativity scenes all these things associated with Provence. Mm-hmm. So there's always an olive tree. There's always something that represents the kind of rocky landscape that you have in the south.
Grotto or something.
The costumes are traditional from Provence on the people. And it just became something that started in the general public's mind to be associated with the Provençal kind of way of life.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting is that at the time of the French Revolution, all the churches were closed. They were actually closed. I hadn't realized that, I think. I knew that they did a lot of damage to churches. I didn't realize that they actually closed down the churches. This lasted just for a few years, but they actually did. And all of this stuff was forbidden. It's kind of reminds us of some other parts of the world where things got forbidden for a while. But for the time period that it lasted, basically from 1789 until 1800, what happened was that people started making these nativity scenes in secret to have inside their houses. And so that's when they started making the tiny little figurines.
I see.
It's really interesting when you think about it, because now it's such a big deal to have all of these wonderful little nativity scenes with these figurines. And I believe that there's a photo we're going to have that has an example of some of the standard figurines. It's kind of like there's this cast of characters that are always used in them.
Yes.
So you have, the donkey and Jesus and all the rest of that, but then you have all these
you have
other
Mary and
people,
Joseph, and you have the shepherds, and
some
you have sheep, and
Provençal people.
Yes, some people,
whatever they are.
Very often, if you make a big village, you will have a bridge, you will have a windmill, or you will have some little houses. But it's more like in England, they have this tradition of little houses.
Do they?
Yeah, they do more little houses. But in around the Mediterranean, it's more
the nativity
people
outside.
Yeah, it's more people. Like my mother always used to make this grotto-looking thing that was right underneath the Christmas tree,
right?
With the little people, and she would tell us the story, and things like that. So, and they they were pretty sorry looking little. By now, they're very, they're not as beautiful as some of the santons you will find today that are made really with bright colors.
They're very beautiful.
They're very, very nice. But it was a really important part of the tradition. You told the story, but it was very small. It was probably like 3 feet by 3 feet.
Right.
Kind of cubic area with a grotto and the whole story. And as we grew older, we were allowed to move the people.
Oh, you were allowed to move the people.
Yeah, when you were little, you were not allowed to touch the little people because they were terracotta. You could break them. But as you got older, you could just.
Now, that's interesting because I remember last year at exactly this time being in southern Spain, in Seville, and every church had a nativity scene, and people would line up outside
to see it,
and they had grottos a lot in them.
Yeah.
So I assume that's a tradition that maybe that's an Italian. I think it sounds like a southern Italian Spanish tradition.
Could be
to have the grottos in it, because what I noted was, besides of course the Santon, which I've seen and everything else, that apparently if you have a traditional Provençal scene, it's going to have at least an olive tree, a river, a bridge, the manger, a hill, some children playing, as well as the animals,
the sheep herders,
and all of that. Now, it's really interesting too is that I don't know if this is true or this is just a legend, but they say that the very first idea of doing a nativity scene started in the 1200s with Saint Francis of Assisi, who of course was the friend of all animals and children and everything else, and that his mother was from Provence. And that she was the one that decided that it would be a really good idea to reenact this. Now, this sounds to me more like a legend than anything else, because I don't know if we can know what his mother was thinking, and this is in the 1200s, really. But it is true that the whole idea of the nativity scene really is of Provençal origin. And to this day, so in Marseille, which has the largest not only Christmas market in Provence, but the largest market for buying the Santon.
Yep.
They fill up. There's a huge Christmas market that goes up and down the Canebière, which is the big main street that goes down to the old port, and then some side streets going off on the trajectory going basically east and west, or left and right, if you want to put it that way. But they also have the largest Santon market in all of Provence, and the whole Bouches-du-Rhône, which is the department that Marseille is in, between Marseille and Aix-en-Provence and a couple of the other small towns, they basically have, I would say, 90% of the manufacturing of the Santon, which still go on in the old traditional way.
Oh, yeah.
Which means 7 steps from the very first clay molding and stuff like that, all the way through to the hand painting of these little objects, which means, of course, as you mentioned, they're very fragile. And obviously, if you get a real handmade one, they are not cheap.
Right. They're expensive, yeah.
Because they are considered to be collector's pieces.
Well, and what most people do is they will give them as a gift, and you will buy one or two a year and give them and make your own collection, right? Or you do it slowly over time, because you'll pay, I don't know, €50 for.
I don't even know. I really
they're
don't
pretty
know.
expensive.
I would imagine that even with a teeny little one, obviously it's going to be, I don't know. I would have thought maybe the tiniest little thing, it starts at €25, which is already $30.
Could be.
But I would guess that, yes, it goes up from there.
But
if
you're going to do a whole village,
it's going to cost
you
you
need
a lot of
them.
money. Exactly. And you're right. My guess is that for most people, it's a tradition to maybe buy a new one or have a collection. And because now what they've done is they've added on folkloric figures that are basically connected to Provence. So you have, the little person in a dance costume and the little person playing a guitar and all this other stuff. And so it's very much the folklore of Provence, which is included in these, you know.
Yeah.
And so basically, with a very different climate, and of course that means a different light and everything else, if you want to experience a really interesting Provençal Christmas market, then definitely it would be the best place to go would be Marseille and or Aix, which of course is only a 20-minute train ride from Marseille anyway.
Yeah.
And of course the other thing is that you have different kinds of, you have the calisson, which is a specialty that's usually bought a lot around Christmas time, which is not like the spiced things of the north. You have made of the crushed almonds and egg whites. That's very traditional in this area.
But by now, I bet they also sell the mulled wine.
Oh, I'm sure they do.
The pain d'épices.
I'm sure they sell the pain d'épices. I'm sure they sell the mulled wine. I'm sure
Yeah.
and all of these regions, by the way. And I'm not Strasbourg, I would assume also, but certainly in the south, they have all these wonderful soaps and everything made with lavender and everything made with all the herbs that you get in the south of France.
And herb packets.
And herb packets too. So, what you get basically is that you get part of it that really is traditional for just around the Christmas time. And then the rest of it is basically things that are traditional to the region, but aren't necessarily associated just with Christmas. But it certainly gives you a different flavor and it's a different spirit. It's also very nice,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think it's more maybe low-key. But a lot of these traditions, it seems to me, are kind of starting to resemble one another from region to region, although the Strasbourg area has the corner on.
Yeah, but I agree with you. I mean,
one.
I think one of the things that would be nice is if the markets in different areas really were regional in the feeling and the decoration, but they're not that as much anymore.
Yeah,
they're just not. And that brings us to the Paris. Okay, lots and lots and lots of people go to Paris at Christmas time, which is a wonderful thing to do.
Yep.
It's got a wonderful atmosphere. Paris is wonderful any time of the year, and Christmas time really seems to add a certain cachet to Paris, and it's not hugely decorated in the way that Strasbourg and the Alsatian area is, but it's got lovely decoration. It's much more discreet, much more chic. It's little white lights and teeny little blue lights, and they're everywhere. And Paris, of course, is filled with tourists at Christmas time, and so of course Paris does a Christmas markets. They don't have one central market. The biggest one is associated with the Champs-Élysées.
Yep.
And it starts at Place de la Concorde and just goes up to the end of the Champs-Élysées before you get to the major stores. There's a part of it that's basically park on both sides. And that's
so it's the bottom half.
It's the bottom half. I'd say it's about a half a mile run. That's pretty much what it is. And it's little chalets on both sides. To be very, very honest, it's fun. But it's nothing special. It's a little bit of everything. It's a little bit of soap, a little bit of jewelry, a little bit of scarves, a little bit of hot mulled wine, and you even get your aligot, that wonderful hot mixture of melted cheese and potatoes that comes from Auvergne.
Aligot is wonderful.
It's wonderful. It's really giving you energy to keep on going in the very cold weather. Yeah, we have to talk about that one day. But it's not like there's a flavor that's a regional flavor to it. It's just it's your generic Christmas market. It's just that it's nice to wander and see things. And I think everybody likes the idea that it's just Christmas market. Where the big one is, interestingly enough, is further up, continuing in the same direction. And that is if you go basically to the end of the number 1 train line and go to the La Défense, which is the huge... what would you call it? The business area with the big, tall buildings that has this huge, enormous open esplanade that's just all concrete. There is the big Christmas market in Paris with over 130 chalets. But there are little Christmas markets pretty much everywhere.
Yeah.
And you could say that Paris is a Christmas market festival at Christmas time.
Yeah.
There are 2 that are really charming that are in the Latin Quarter, right around Saint-Sulpice. There's one, and right around Saint-Germain-des-Prés. They're really nice. They're not very big, but because they're around these beautiful old churches, and there's usually a group playing music. They're very nice. They give you a nice feeling, and I like them a lot. And there's one up in Montmartre like that as well, and usually have people singing. Talking about singing. It's usually in front of Sacré-Cœur. So Paris is a fun place to get a feeling for the Christmas markets if you are only going to be in Paris.
Yeah, that would be better than not experiencing them at all. Yeah.
Exactly. It just doesn't have anything. It's like when people ask what's a typical Parisian food. Well, there isn't really. I mean, it's regional foods that come to Paris.
Soupe à l'oignon.
Soupe à l'oignon, exactly. And some of the stands actually in Paris, and I would assume now even in Strasbourg and maybe in the south, they've started selling hot soup, which is a great idea.
Yeah.
Because if you don't feel like having hot mulled wine and it gets cold and you're wandering around, it's great to have a cup of this soup that's usually served in some kind of, paper or styrofoam kind of thing.
Yeah.
You can just walk around with this wonderful hot soup, and and it keeps your hands at least nice and warm while you wander around.
Well, I have this memory from years ago. This is when I still lived in the U.S. So we left the U.S. to come visit my family for Christmas. And when we showed up at Charles de Gaulle, the whole airport, the only decorations that were there were blue and silver. And as somebody living in America, where the colors of Christmas are red and green, and that's what you do. Well, there wasn't a stitch of red and green in Paris. It was all blue and silver.
That's right.
And I remember thinking, well, that's odd, but it was pretty. It was styling.
It's very sedate.
Yeah.
It's a sedate. It's much. I guess Paris wants to be classy, and they're not going to do it. It's
That's
classy.
what it is.
It's classy.
Well, it's like these people I know who only decorate their trees in one color. It's just that they're wanting to be classy. It's classier looking than if you have all these hodgepodges.
Exactly. It's less exuberant, but
that's right.
Right. Now, I have to make a self-correction. I knew that that number didn't sound right to me. I'm just looking back at my notes. The Christmas market at the Défense is not 100 and something. It's 350 chalets. It's huge.
So
it's huge.
It's very big. Yeah.
It's very big. It's not as big as Strasbourg, but it's very, very big.
Strasbourg was 350 as well.
Yeah, well, but I think that Strasbourg it's 350 chalets plus other vendors and things like that. Okay. So anyway, whatever. I'm not sure exactly of the number of the chalets at La Défense, but
it probably varies from year to year.
It's a biggie. It's a biggie. So talking about that's basically Paris, and you're absolutely right. I think the thing about Paris is that Paris is Paris, so you have to be chic and you have to be a little bit less over the top, exuberant, with the big Santa Clauses, like in Strasbourg and in Alsace. Every house has a Santa Claus coming down off of its outside wall.
Yeah, they probably don't want to do that in Paris.
They don't want to do that in Paris. They're just
it's a bit brash.
They're like a very well bred poodle. I mean, you just you have to maintain your dignity. Paris has to be dignified. So. Should we mention just our local one? Just
sure.
Because, interestingly enough, of course, we're in the southwest of France, and that is in Toulouse. I can remember when I first came here, which was a number of years before you did, there was no Christmas market.
Wait. I was first. I was born here.
Yeah, but was there one then?
No.
No, of course
No,
not.
No.
No, but in
Christmas
fact,
was utterly a family thing.
it was a family
It
thing.
was just within the walls of your own house. You didn't even, when I was little, you didn't even decorate outside at all. I don't
No.
remember the city of Toulouse
No.
decorate. Now they do.
Now they
I don't
do.
know if, you've probably been downtown
Yeah.
in Toulouse
Is it last
the
few
last
days?
few days.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
It's
They have
beautiful.
a lot of nice lights.
Yep.
And
And
very nice.
and interestingly enough, we have a change of mayor. And I was reading in the Dépêche. I was trying to see if I could figure out
Dépêche is the local
newspaper, because I wanted to see if they would tell me the year that they started doing this, because I am absolutely certain that when and I've lived here now for 16, almost 17 years.
Yeah.
I am absolutely certain when I first arrived in Toulouse, there were no chalets. There was no Christmas market like that.
No,
on
this
the
is
Capitol
like
Square.
the last
It's 10 years, I think.
maybe 10.
9 years or 10 years.
Yeah.
But I was trying to see if I could find the date, and I couldn't. But it was very funny, because here you get into like local politics, where our local new mayor said that he wanted to show that we really appreciated Christmas. And so, unlike the mayor that just got voted out, he was going to go back and spend a lot of money to do lots of decorations and lots of colors. And it is a fact that it's a much more colorful, exuberant decoration.
But a lot of silver also. A lot of yeah, it's not multicolored. Let's put it that way.
No, but did you see at Jean Jaurès, there's this huge Santa Claus lit up
around Goudouli.
Right, exactly. No, I mean, it's fun. It's fun.
I like it.
I kind of like it. I think it's the fact that when you grow up in a place where you associate a certain time of the year with cold weather and with all of these things, it feels good to see it again. It's very strange, It's always kind of like a deflating experience to walk around an area around Christmas time and kind of go, there's no lights, there's no thing. It's just somehow
even my
different.
tiny little village has some Christmas lights.
Every little village.
Yeah.
And in fact, I just realized that one of the things I was going to say about Paris that I forgot to say is that even though they're fun. I mean, there are these little markets that are Christmas markets with chalets pretty much in every arrondissement of Paris. And of course, the big ones are around the Champs-Élysées. But the other thing about Paris, and that is a real must, is the decorated windows in the department stores. And people line up really patiently to see these windows. And having grown up in New York, where they do a lot of decoration in the windows, there is nothing as wonderful as the windows in Paris. Absolutely wonderful.
So
they
like
spend a
la
fortune. Saint-Maritain, Galerie Lafayette, Printemps. They have a crew of creative
Bon
people.
Marché probably
Bon
as
Marché.
well.
They
Yeah.
do animated figures, and they have a theme every year, and the windows are absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
So that's one of the nicest things about
That you can do in Paris.
That you can do walking around the streets of
Toulouse
Paris.
probably has a little bit of that, but not as much.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Really, just a little bit. It just seems like I think that once you leave the north, and of course you have other cities in the north that have nice Christmas markets, that just to mention Lille, which is further north, which we've never really talked about yet, and Reims, which I did mention very briefly, and even in Normandy, I really think that the further south you go, except in Provence, where they have the history of the nativity scenes and the Santon, it's just not that big a deal. It just seems like it's a more Nordic kind of thing.
Another thing we didn't mention when we talked about Provence is that they have this tradition of dried fruit and nuts.
Oh, yeah.
In Provence for Christmas. And so we see that all over France pretty much. You eat dried nuts and fruits, but I think it is from Provence originally.
It's from Provence, which I think originally is from Italy, I believe.
Could be.
Because I think that the original thing was you gave an orange as a Christmas present because it was a special thing to have an orange.
Yeah.
And you had all these dried fruits and nuts. And my guess is that goes back to the original idea of giving things to children, little gifts of foodstuffs to children as special treats at Christmas time.
So we have to talk about Christmas chocolates because France has fabulous Christmas chocolates.
Has fabulous chocolates. Period.
France has fabulous chocolate. But what's your favorite treat for Christmas chocolate?
Oh,
the one you cannot resist.
Interestingly enough, I think what I like is what they call the serment, which are pieces of orange rind with dark coated with dark chocolate.
Yes,
I
yes.
love those. I absolutely love those. And for some reason, they only sell them at Christmas time.
Yeah.
I mean, you have all kinds of other kinds of chocolate. France is a huge chocolate eating and producing country. But for some reason, I only see these packages of them at Christmas time.
Yeah.
And I love those.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah.
See, my favorite, I have 3 because, I love.
Oh, I know
Food.
you. Yes. In fact, I'm looking at your chocolates now thinking,
Well,
yes.
over there we have a box of escargot,
Yes,
which you brought.
which I brought.
Escargot de Bourgogne. So
Right.
these are snail-looking things. I don't eat snails typically, but the chocolate ones.
Chocolate ones
Yeah.
she
Oh,
eats.
those are really, really good. And they're called escargot de Bourgogne. So Bourgogne is an
Right.
area in France, kind of north and east. So maybe I guess that's where they're from.
I assume, but
The other ones I love is little cherry liqueur chocolates.
I love those too.
Yeah, those
That's
are-
my second.
yum,
Yeah,
yum,
like my
yum.
Mon Chéri.
Yes, Mon
Yes,
Chéri
Mon Chéri.
is a brand, but I even like the no brand.
The no brand
Yeah,
ones.
I even like the generic ones. They're really good. And I also like another one called Les Pyrénéens.
Oh, see that I don't like.
It's like it's a milk chocolate that you put in the freezer and you eat them really, really cold.
They have a special taste. What is it that they put in them? I don't know.
Don't know, but they are.
They are supposed to
very
feel
good.
cool in your mouth,
Yes,
right?
yes. And now they make them with. Oh, they make them with white chocolate and
Oh.
dark chocolate and mint chocolate and.
You just like the plain old.
I like the original milk chocolate Pyrénéen.
See, now that's it. I tried them a couple of times. I really don't, but I don't even like milk chocolate. So
Oh,
that's the
that's-
other. But
yeah.
you're right. That besides the Sermon, I really do love the. I like the cherry with dark chocolate, the orange with dark chocolate, and of course those have a little bit of just a teeny little bit of liqueur in them.
Yes,
So
yes.
they're nice.
And you can buy these tiny little. They look like little bottles.
Yeah.
And they have. So it's chocolate, but it has a little bit of liqueur in there
Yeah.
of various kinds. And
Yeah,
those are also.
it's interesting. Those I don't like as much, but it's
Because
probably because
they're
I don't
too
like eau
big.
de vie anyway. generally
It's too
speaking.
big. Most of those are too big. Anyway, if you go to joinasinfrance.com/gifts, I'll probably list a few of these in there because
and yes, chocolate.
they make for good gifts. If you want to buy something French for a family member or a friend or whatever, it might be a good place to look.
And mentioning chocolate, we should mention that it is the country where more chocolate is bought and given as gifts than anywhere else.
Yeah.
For Christmas time.
Pretty much, if you're invited to somebody's house, you will bring champagne or chocolate or oysters. Oysters are a big deal in France this time of year.
Yeah.
Fresh oysters
They are.
on the half shelf.
You
don't like that?
No.
Oh my goodness,
No.
I love those.
I like foie gras.
When I ate vegetarian for a long time, well, for a few months anyway, it
That's
felt
not
like
a
a
long
long
time,
time. It
but-
felt like a long time. Sorry. That's the first
That's what you
meat
wanted.
oysters.
Oysters?
We have these little chalets on the side of the road that
Yeah.
beckon, and
Right.
there's this one place in Toulouse that I just love, and I stop by even like in the middle of the week. I'll just stop by this time of year. I stop by, I get a couple dozen oysters, and it takes me 15 minutes to open them, and I just love them.
Different strokes for different
I
folks.
really miss that when I lived in the U.S.
Oh, see, I would never miss an oyster. Oysters don't miss me. We're friends. I don't bother them at all. Chocolate definitely.
Yeah.
Chocolate is the hardest thing to do. Is to go into a big department store that has a huge selection of good chocolates and not want to buy a whole bunch of boxes of them and not just to give them away. It is unbelievable.
I
It's
buy
like
them for me.
There's a magnet attraction, It's just I could just the oh my God, the chocolates are out. It's like I have to put blinders on my eyes.
Yeah, because
and walk
it's
past
seasonal.
Them.
The
It's
rest
seasonal.
of the year, they don't have them out. They
No.
don't sell them. They don't even make them. I think they start making Christmas chocolates like in September and
I
October.
think they do. I
And
think
they
they do.
don't make them the rest of the
Right.
year because
I mean, you can go to a regular chocolatier, the kinds
course.
that really do make
chocolate year round.
high-end chocolates year-round, and they
Yeah.
do not make them, of course, in the summer ever anyway. But the major companies that make these are good, mean, you have a gamma, a range of prices, but still, the variety and the assortments that there are, it is unreal. I've never seen anything like that.
Oh, and the other thing that we do in France that I don't think you find in America very much is the marron glacé.
Yeah.
So these are candied chestnuts.
Candied chestnuts.
And they're so good.
And they are, interestingly, very complex. The reason they're expensive most of the time, it's something that comes
They're
from
hard to
Italy.
make.
They're actually an Italian tradition.
Uh-huh.
Is because they're cooked and dipped in vanilla-flavored sugar several times. They're very difficult to make. They're very delicate.
Yeah.
And so they're usually a box doesn't have a whole lot of them because they
a dozen or something,
pricey.
and they're still 20 euros.
And they're
or
still
something.
20 euros.
Yeah.
They're very, very good.
Yeah.
Though, let me just mention the last town because we're going to segue that one into the next podcast.
Yes.
Which is about this town, which was supposed to be about this town. And then I found out that it also has a very famous Christmas market. So the serendipity is that it's going to help us get from one thing to the other. And that is to just, we're back in the Southwest, but a little bit further northeast in the Aquitaine area. And
Dordogne.
In
Sarlat
the
is
Dordogne, the Aquitaine area. It's
that's
considered
the
to be the region of
you're
Aquitaine.
right.
Last time we talked about Bordeaux.
Yeah.
And I wanted to talk about Sarlat, which is this small town in Dordogne, which is in the center or the eastern center of the region called Aquitaine. So it's halfway between Toulouse and Bordeaux. But it turns out Sarlat, S-A-R-L-A-T. Some people say Sarlat, and they pronounce the T because they're speaking Occitan.
No, it's Sarlat.
And Sarlat. And some people say Sarlat. And so,
they're wrong.
But we say Sarlat, and
Yeah.
it's an exception to the rule about pronouncing things in French, and it's one of those things. But it's also, strangely enough, and ironically or surprisingly or whatever the word is, it's famous for its Christmas market.
Uh-huh.
And it's also famous for its markets and its gastronomy markets.
Yes.
And so I thought it's really interesting.
It is not good to be a duck there.
Oh, it's not good to be a duck there. It is definitely not. And it's not good to go there on a diet.
No.
Don't go
No.
to Sarlat on a diet because you will be miserable. And there's no point in going there if you're on a diet because it's famous already for its all year round Saturday markets.
But we'll talk about that next week.
We will talk about that next week.
Yeah, next
but it's also famous for its Christmas markets. So just to know that very briefly, it's a town of about 10,000 people. And it's unfortunately not very easy to get to if you don't have a car.
Yeah.
Because it has got a tiny bus service that takes you from trains. But unfortunately, the main train station and the main train lines were taken out. So there is a way of getting there, but we'll talk about that next week. But it is up in the area called the Dordogne. And so there's a somewhat different tradition in relation to Christmas markets, and it's far more attached to food. Mm-hmm. And the food involves, among other things, foie gras and truffles.
Yeah.
And truffles.
Because these are definitely major foods that we eat at Christmas time.
At Christmas time.
Yeah.
Right. So
Christmas and New Year's, big consumption of foie gras.
And lots of
truffles.
rich foods, as you can gather.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
And lots of
And
nice
actually,
wines that go with
oysters
them.
are some of the leanest foods you can eat at Christmas.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
It's not... you're not going to get fat on oysters, I don't
No.
think. Probably not.
No, you're not. But the Sarlat, interestingly enough, the Sarlat market, now this is a small town. It's a little bit like, I mentioned a town called Montbéliard, which is in the Franche-Comté. They're about the same size. They're both old, historically interesting places, but they're famous for their markets. One, Montbéliard, because of the lights. Apparently, it's famous for all the lights that they put up. And this one, because they center their Christmas market around an ice skating rink.
Ah, yes.
And so everybody watches people ice skate, and then the market...
In Sarlat, right?
In Sarlat,
Okay.
yeah. And they have all the chalets in a... I guess it's a rectangular form, I would assume. I've seen a couple of pictures of it. I don't know exactly if it's square or rectangular, but all the chalets go all the way around. So as you walk around, it's very beautifully decorated with lights, and you have the reflection of the whiteness of the ice. and people skating and music playing, and it's very, very lovely. And yet it's not a region where the winters are very cold.
Right.
But it makes it a wintry, pretty atmosphere because of that.
In Toulouse a few years back, I saw an ice rink that was actually not ice. It was a polymer, a plastic polymer of some sort, and you skated on it with normal ice skates, and it worked.
Huh?
I tried it. It was surprisingly similar to skating on ice.
I wonder. Well, I'm assuming that this is a real ice skating rink in
I don't
Sarlat,
know if
but
it is.
I don't know. I would know.
In Toulouse, they set one up a few years ago. I don't know if they're going to do it again this year.
Know.
But it wasn't real ice.
In Paris, they have an ice skating rink at Christmas time in front of City Hall, but I think it's a real one.
It might be.
It might be.
It might be. I don't really know. But I mean, can you imagine because it doesn't freeze all day long in France this time of year.
No.
It might freeze in the night.
They feed it ice like in a regular ice skating rink. I think the one in Paris, that's what they do. They actually set it up with
freezers underneath.
With freezer things. They freeze. I don't know how they work that. Artificial ice skating rink. I just want to mention one more quick thing about the Sarlat market because it makes it one of the things that makes it a little bit unique, and it is mentioned as one of the most interesting markets outside of the 2 or 3 major huge ones. And that is that every single year they invite another country to set up some chalets and provide the crafts and the foods from that particular country. So they do a thematic for their Christmas market. And this particular year, it's Austria.
Oh, nice.
So they do something a little bit different. And people do come from all the way around, from Bordeaux, from Toulouse and other regions. And of course, I think a lot of people do come down from Paris to be in the Dordogne region for Christmas vacation anyway.
Yeah.
So it's a lovely
beautiful
place.
Area,
it's a beautiful area. The town is gorgeous, and it's got a very lovely market. And so I think the ones that are mentioned specifically are ones that have some kind of unique quality to them, except the fact that, of course, we had to talk about Paris anyway. Because everybody tries now to find some reason to make their Christmas market interesting.
Yeah.
So they have to find a little new
it's good
thing
if you can
to
stand
do.
out a little bit. Yeah.
Because it's big business.
Yeah. Well, Christmas is big business.
Fun.
Let's face it.
And Christmas markets are fun. And you could probably do a tour of France of Christmas markets, but between gaining about 100 kilos and the cost of whatever it is you'd buy and eat, I don't think that's such a great idea. But you might try one or two.
Yeah,
I think definitely.
I think
that's
if
a good
you're
idea.
in France this time of year, it would be a really, really good thing to do.
It's a definitely good thing to do.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you very much, listeners.
Can I go eat my piece of chocolate now?
Yes, I'll give you some chocolate. And you know what? We would love to have feedback, especially on this episode, on Christmas markets near you, maybe, or Christmas traditions, maybe some of the things that we've mentioned that appear in your communities in North America or Australia, or things that ring a bell. I would love to hear about that because I think these are deep cultural things that appear. They pop up in very strange places just because of immigration or people moving, or things like that. So
what's Christmas like in Australia?
Yeah, it'd be fun to hear what you do in your neck of the woods. So thank you very much, Elise. Wonderful podcast as always, and we will talk to you next week.
Yay.
Au revoir.
Au revoir.